Well, hello. I am live once again here in my studio. I'm hoping this is working. I'm pushing all the buttons myself here, so I've got no idea what's going on. I'm just going to pull up the comments here. If you're live, come and join me. Come and chuck something in the comments. Say hello. Let me know where you're from. All that kind of stuff. It'd be great to hear from people if you're here watching me. And I'm going to, if I can get my tablet out of the way, rearrange everything here. We've got a few things lined up for today. I've got a number of teaching things that I'm going to run through. We've actually got a few things that I've been having on in the background over the last few weeks. So I'm going to pick up on a few things. So last time I started talking about the SQ5 console over here. I'm going to carry on with that and do some more training on the SQ5. I've also got an update for you on the little experiment that I did on social media to look at does 4K video benefit anything in 2024. I'm going to stop that video as well because I don't know where that's going now. Let me start actually by taking you through some of the changes that I've made since the last live stream, because there's a few things that I've changed. One of the things I noticed in watching the video back was I got a bit of popping from the microphone. So I've actually gone for a windshield on here to try and see if I can reduce that a little bit. So hopefully that will help and we get some slightly better audio. Let me know in the comments what you think to pop shields and windshields, because they're a bit of a controversial subject, I feel. I've never been a great big fan of them, but recently I've tried them on a few microphones, and actually from a sonic point of view, I think they do make a lot of sense. The audio quality's generally a lot better. You get a lot less of those popping noises from the microphone. I just think they look really ugly. So it's just it's one of those where it's like that balance of, do you want better audio, even if it doesn't quite look so good, or, you know. So tell me where you lie on that anyway. Let me know what you think. I'm also, one of the big issues I've got again today is that my Pro Presenter computer is not here once again, which is the same issue I had last time. So I'm having to run lots of things from QuickTime and PowerPoint and all sorts of things today to try and get all the visuals up on screen, which again is just really frustrating. And I'd really like to try and make sure I get my Pro Presenter computer running for the next time we do one of these. And let me do this once again. Last time we did one of these, I showed you this, my little update board, so we can keep track of where I'm at with subscribers. Last time we did this, we were at 3.8. I am now at 4.1 thousand subscribers. So thank you very much once again. The purpose of updating this board isn't to kind of brag about how big the channel's getting or anything like that. I mean, 4.1 thousand in terms of YouTube is very minimal, and I know it's not a big channel by any means. The purpose of doing this is just to be able to say thank you. It does blow me away just how many people choose to watch these videos and to subscribe to the channel and all that sort of stuff. So I hope that all this content is really useful for you. I hope that people find it helpful. I hope you find these live shows entertaining. I hope there's an element of fun to them as well, which is my intention. So hopefully that's what we do. And it's just an opportunity for me to say thank you to everybody. So thank you once again. 4.1 thousand, insane. I'm so over the moon with how this channel is going. If you haven't done it yet, let's throw this up. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead, hit subscribe, hit the little bell icon, leave a thumbs up. All those things do really help for the channel. It's a really big thing in terms of how YouTube shows this video to other people and things. So if you want to support the channel, hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, hit the bell, hit all those sorts of things. That does really help. Okay, so let me start then by going on to the update on the social media. And this is where I really need my Pro Presenter computer because nothing is here. Let me find it. Sorry. Open PowerPoint. Where are you? Oh dear. Live stream, where is it? Oh no. Okay, maybe I need to do this without slides then. This is really annoying because I've got a whole bunch of slides prepared for going through this with. Yeah. Oh. Okay, so the social media experiment that I did, I don't know if you saw it, but I did a video that I put out on social media. And the video was just a test, really. I did this video, I filmed it here in this little studio, and I threw it out on social media and I put it out on loads of platforms. And the whole point was just to see how well different versions of exactly the same video performed on social media. And so I made 8 variations of exactly the same video. The video was, it was just me talking to the camera, explaining the experiment, I wanted to see how the video did in 4K versus HD, and how it performed in portrait versus landscape, and how it performed in short form versus long form. And so I did 8 variations of this same video. I just filmed myself talking to camera. So the long form video was about 3 or 4 minutes. The short form video was under 60 seconds. And then I did a cropped version of the video that was portrait, full landscape version, and then I exported in 4K and HD. It's exactly the same footage. I literally just sat there, spoke to the camera, explained everything, put it into a timeline. I chopped out the essential information and made that down to a 60-second video, and then I left a full 3 or 4 minute version of the video. And then posted it to I posted it to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, although we'll come on to that in a minute, LinkedIn. I feel like there was another one as well. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and something else. Can't remember what the other one was. I'm going to keep trying to look for these slides as well while we're going along here, because it would be very useful if I can find this. So yeah, I went through, did all these different variations of this same video. I posted them all up to social media, and then I left it for several weeks just to see what would happen and how different different platforms might push different videos, and the number of views that we would get for each of those, and all this kind of stuff. And I've got to a point where I compiled all the results the other day, and I would really like to find this thing, but I can't see it, and it's very annoying. Right, I'll tell you what I can do. What I did was I put all the results into a spreadsheet, and I can pull up that spreadsheet and I can show you that. So the results were really interesting, actually. It really fascinated me, because I did almost exactly the same thing about a year ago. About 3 years ago, I did almost exactly the same thing. And here we go. Right, let's throw this up. Does that work? No. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Nothing's working. Bear with. Super source. There we go. Great. Okay. So, if nothing else, hopefully you can see this. So, the 5th platform I did was TikTok. I posted the videos to TikTok as well. So let's just talk through what we have here on the screen. Hopefully you can see this. Let me see if I can just make it slightly bigger. Zoom in. See if this works. Okay. So YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So you can see here where I posted them to. So YouTube posted all 8 variations of the video. Facebook, all 8 variations of the video. Instagram, no variations of the video. I don't know what other people think about Instagram. I can't stand Instagram. I just don't get it. I don't know what they're trying to do. I don't know what Instagram think the purpose of their platform is, but it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I literally made 8 variations of the same video, and none of them were suitable for Instagram. I tried to post them all to Instagram, and it wouldn't accept any of the variations of this video. So I couldn't post any of them to Instagram. It wouldn't let me. None of them were acceptable. None of them were suitable. Wouldn't let me post any of them to Instagram. So no videos went to Instagram. Not for lack of trying. Instagram just didn't want to take any of them. So no results from Instagram. TikTok. So the landscape videos didn't get posted to TikTok because TikTok doesn't accept landscape videos, but all of the portrait ones were absolutely fine. So they all went to TikTok. LinkedIn. Now, unfortunately, I actually got unwell. So part of the reason why it's taken me so long to get around to doing this second live stream was because I had a couple of weeks where I was just not able to do anything, and so I started posting to LinkedIn and wasn't able to finish posting the videos to LinkedIn. So there's 3 videos that I just unfortunately wasn't able to get them up onto LinkedIn, and then by the time I was then well enough to do it again, it felt like the experiment was already underway and it was kind of too late to do it. So everything else got the videos posted. LinkedIn just didn't manage to get those last ones in there. So what were the results? What did we find out? Well, one of the things, when I did this test previously, one of the things I discovered was that I literally had 10 times the number of views for 4K as I did for HD. And actually in preparation for this, I went back and just double checked the results. And actually, as it stands of now, the 4K version of that video has 3,700 views. And the HD version had about 360 views. So it's literally over 10 times the number of views for the 4K version. And that was the version I posted back in 2020, I think it was. So back in 2020, 4K video was a massive thing. And the the YouTube platform literally pushed 10 times the number of views to that 4K video than it did to the HD video. And at that point, I only did 2 variations. It was just HD and 4K, no other differences. So this time, you can see all the results here. So you can see each individual video. Now, none of the videos perform very well generally. You can see all of them are like in the tens of numbers. The only exception is TikTok, which I'll just come on to in a minute. Everything else is like 14, 20, 71, 60. I don't think anything else is over 100 on any one video. And I was trying to kind of work out why they didn't perform very well. And part of me thinks there's a few things that are going on here. I think one of the things that most algorithms will do is if they think that you're spamming the system, it will deliberately try and suppress those videos, and it will try and sort of stop you from doing it. And because I think it's maybe seen 8 variations of effectively exactly the same video, they probably saw it as a bit of spam and were like, oh, let's block that and sort of stop those from being spread around. So they probably sort of saw it that way. I also think that, again, people whoever saw these videos will have thought, oh, I've already seen that video, I'm not going to watch it again. And so people will probably have only picked like 1 or maybe 2 versions of the video to watch. And so the individual videos didn't perform that well. But if you look at the totals overall, they start to get more in line. So on YouTube here, the grand total of number of views I had on all of the videos on YouTube was 304, which is still quite low for YouTube. So I think the algorithm was seeing it as spam and pushing it. But it's kind of getting into the ballpark of what I might expect a YouTube video to do. And similarly across the platform, so Facebook, exactly the same thing. So all of the views all the way across, 230 views. Instagram, nothing. TikTok, 1,604 views. Now, the one thing I found with TikTok was I actually looked into TikTok. This is literally the first thing I've ever posted to TikTok. Never used it before, but I thought I'd just give it a try. I created the TikTok account specifically to post this video to it. And you can see that each individual video here got much higher views than all the other platforms. But if you look at TikTok, so in order to get monetized on YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers, and I think it's 10,000 watch hours of content to be able to then monetize your channel on YouTube. Now, if you want to monetize a TikTok channel, the number of stats that you need to monetize a TikTok channel are 10 times the number that they are for YouTube. So you need 10,000 subscribers on TikTok, and you need 100,000 watch hours on TikTok to be able to monetize your TikTok channel. And so to my mind, it makes sense that if they expect to see 10 times the number of subscribers and the number of views on a TikTok channel as you would on a YouTube channel, that the number of views would also be 10 times the number. So in my head, that kind of makes sense. So if these numbers are 10 times, the algorithm on TikTok is pushing videos 10 times harder than it is on any other platform, then actually that's exactly what we're seeing here. So obviously 334, a tenth of that would be 33.4, which then puts it much more in line with what we're seeing on these other platforms. Facebook, 25 views, YouTube 65 views, and TikTok would then be effectively 33.4 views. So that sort of seems to me to make sense that TikTok would be 10 times the number. I think if you want to then compare it against other platforms, I think it's probably safer to say, well, what does a tenth of that look like? And you're then probably somewhere closer to the equivalent number of views on the other platforms. And then, LinkedIn, exactly the same thing again. 140 views in total. LinkedIn's not a platform I use loads, so I wasn't expecting a massive result on that. Equally, Facebook, I don't do loads on Facebook either, so I wasn't really expecting massive numbers on that. YouTube is by far my biggest platform, and the results kind of are by far the biggest there. Even the total on TikTok, if we did a tenth of that, that's 160.4 views, so it kind of fits exactly in where I would expect it to fall with all the other platforms. So it seems overall that that was perhaps something of what was happening, that A, the platforms were viewing it as spam and suppressing it, and B, each individual video is contributing to a total number of views across all 8 of those videos. So that all seems to be making sense to me so far, and falling into kind of where I would expect that to be. So how does that break down then, HD versus 4K? Well, we can go through and start looking at these. I've worked these out as a percentage. So these numbers here represent the percentage. So it's 37.8% HD to 62.1.2% 4K. Same here on Facebook, 58% HD. Instagram, nothing. TikTok, 59% HD, HD on top, and then LinkedIn 55% HD. Now, none of these results here, to me, suggest a kind of significant swing in either direction. The biggest swing we have on any of these platforms is YouTube, which is 62% versus 38%. So 38% towards HD, 62% towards 4K. So there's a relatively big swing towards 4K, but it's not a massive swing. The rest of them, they're almost 50-50, 58 to 41, 59 to 40, 55 to 45. I mean, there's a few percent difference here and there, but really it's not a lot. They're less than 60-40, most of them. TikTok perhaps the closest there. But all of these are leaning very, very slightly towards HD. So those 3 platforms seem to prefer HD by a fractional margin, but they seem to prefer HD. Whereas YouTube actually is flipping it the other way, and YouTube actually has a slightly bigger swing towards 4K. So that I thought was quite interesting. What about portrait versus landscape then? So we see the same thing. Again, I've worked these all out into percentages. So YouTube as a percentage, 55 to 45-ish towards portrait. So portrait video slightly preferred on YouTube. Facebook seems that landscape video slightly preferred on Facebook, although I mean that I found surprising, because I was sort of expecting Facebook, majority of people viewing on their phone, probably going to go for a portrait video. Sort of works better on a phone, doesn't it? So portrait video on Facebook was what I was expecting, but it's slightly swung the other way. YouTube, Instagram, nothing. TikTok, 100% portrait. It's all it accepts. Doesn't accept landscape videos, so that's obvious. And then LinkedIn, a very slight swing towards landscape. Portrait video 47, landscape 53-ish. So even here, even portrait versus landscape, there's no kind of massive swing in any direction. Again, the biggest swing here being Facebook, 64 to 36% swing towards a landscape video, which I just found that really interesting, that they would prefer a landscape video on Facebook. But anyway, that's kind of where that's landed. So what does all this tell me then about the social media platforms? Well, first of all, like I've said, none of these percentages to me suggest a significant swing in any direction. Like, if there was a significant swing towards anything here, I would sort of expect 70, 75, 80% of one thing. That to me would suggest that there's a definite trend and there's a definite sort of significant swing in one direction or another. The biggest swings we've got anywhere are here on YouTube, 62%, and then on Facebook, where we're looking at 64% towards landscape. Those are the biggest swings that we have in any direction. 64, 65%, it's barely a majority, I would suggest. And particularly that the overall views are not particularly high anyway. The whole thing's fairly low. It's kind of difficult at that point to get an accurate reading as to what the general platform is performing like. So there's nothing here that stands out to me as being a significant swing in any direction. So it doesn't seem that HD video is performed. It doesn't see that 4K's video is preferred. It doesn't see that portrait video is preferred, and it doesn't really suggest that landscape video is preferred either. So what does that mean that we should be posting to social media? And I think the answer is whatever you want. It doesn't really matter all that much what you post to social media, which I just find it fascinating that's where we've come to. As I say, literally a few years ago, it was very clearly 10 times the number of views towards 4K, massive swing towards 4K. That was a significant swing towards 4K. Now, there's barely anything in it. It doesn't really matter whether you post 4K or HD. It doesn't really matter whether you post portrait or landscape. They're all performing very, very similarly. And kind of in the background while I've been doing this experiment, I also did a bit of research into the platforms as well, and trying to work out what it is that these platforms are preferring. And I watched quite a few interesting YouTube videos where people sort of discussing this. And one of the things that was said was the best thing to do is to swap the idea of algorithm and what an algorithm is going to do, and think about instead what is your audience wanting. Don't think about what does the algorithm want, think about what your audience wants. Because the algorithms that are designed for these platforms now are getting really, really very good. And they're really very able to kind of work out what people want to see and to feed them the content that they want to see. And so the algorithm is very much designed around the audience. What does the audience want? What do people want to see? What are the audience looking for? What are the audience searching for? What are the audience actually watching and spending time on? And let's feed them videos that are very similar to the ones that they've already been watching. And so if people are watching portrait videos, then that is possibly what the algorithm might prefer to feed them. Although I think it's probably more based on content than it is on whether it's portrait or landscape. It's about, is it a comedy video, or is it about cats, or is it, whatever it might be. And what the video's content is about, that's the thing that the algorithm's going to try and feed you. And whether that's an HD video or a 4K video or whatever else kind of video makes little or no difference at the minute. I think there are very few differences between any of these variations of videos. And yeah, I just found this whole experiment absolutely fascinating. I didn't expect these results at all. I was expecting something similar to what I saw last time about the 4K. I was expecting it to be a much stronger swing towards 4K. I was possibly expecting a bit of a lean towards portrait for a lot of the videos, but yeah, it just seems to be, it doesn't really matter what you post, and it doesn't really matter what format it's in. Just post content that hopefully you find fun to create and interesting and whatever. But I think most of all, it needs to be content that your audience are going to like to watch. And so if you are a church and what you've been putting out is your normal Sunday morning services, then it makes sense that that's the type of content that you keep putting out. And, don't try and branch out and do something very different, because your audience are going to be expecting the thing that they've been seeing since you started your channel. So that is in a nutshell, that's the results of my experiment that I did. And yeah, like I say, if that's surprised you or interested you, or if there's anything in there that you found unexpected, again, chuck it in the comments, let me know, because it's certainly been a really interesting one for me. So yeah, there we go. That's the results of the social media experiment completed. Let's hop back over to this camera again. Okay, so that is going to lead me on to part 2 of how I set up my SQ5. Now, let's just cut over here. For those of you who joined me for the last session, you might have seen over my shoulder, over this shot over here, there is my SQ5 sat down here in the corner. And in fact, I've moved my top-down camera today, so it is actually over the SQ5 over here, so we can have a look at a few things on this. But one of the things I quite like to do when I'm doing training on the computer is to be able to pull up the software, and I think it's a lot easier for me to be able to show you stuff on this. So let me switch to this one. Or in fact, let's just cut back here just for a second. We'll come on to that in a minute. That's the software that we can then see all the settings on. And what I'm going to do is going to take you through what we did last time. So last time, what I did was I showed you this. I've printed it off this time, so I'm not having to keep referring back to it. This is my little spreadsheet that I created, which I list in it all my inputs and outputs and groupings and where I'm going to put things and how I'm going to route things and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to work through a few of the things on here to be able to show you just some of how we would go about programming up these things into an SQ5. And let's throw the super source back on again, if I can find it. Where's my super source gone? Super source, there it is. Okay, so what I am going to show you, I'm going to show you a few different things today. Taking you through the console, showing you how to use certain bits and pieces and how to route things and to mute things and to send things out of the console. So we're going to look at what I've actually done here is I've set up a number of inputs, and just to kind of, because I'm also using this console for my audio for the live stream, so the sound that you're listening to right now is coming through this console. So I didn't want to do anything that would mess up with the sound with what you're listening to. So I have tried to keep it all separate and tried to make sure that what we're going to do is it's going to be a bit more theoretical. We're not actually got any of this audio coming through, but I've tried to sort of program up a number of things that we can then have a look at and just work our way through some of the perhaps more complex features of the mixing desk and how to do some slightly more complicated routing and things like that on this console. Okay, so first of all, you can see here I've labelled up a number of channels. So we've got a kick channel, snare, tom 1, tom 2, hats, overhead left, overhead right. Okay, so just some fairly generic, basic drum microphones. And what we're going to do is have a look at what we can do to start processing some of those things. Now, one of the things, let's have a look in here. One of the things I wanted to show you was the library. I might need to show you this on the top-down camera. So, this is actually, I didn't think this through because my microphone's over here. The library button, right there, top left of the screen, is a really useful tool to be able to set up channels on a mixing desk. And if let me just click the library button. So if I look at if I show you the library screen there, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see that detail at all. The library is a really useful tool to be able to just quickly recall things like EQs, compression settings, things like that. And if you click into the library, it actually comes preloaded with a number of things. So I can tell you that there are things like kick EQs, snare EQs, guitar EQs, bass EQs, all preloaded into the library there. But the other thing you've got, so it's on the right-hand side, it's saying factory, and the factory preset EQs that it comes loaded with are all in that factory bank. But underneath that, it's got user, and you can actually store any of your own library settings into that bank as well. Let me cut back from that because I think it's probably a bit too small for you to be able to see much on there anyway. And the library is a really quick, easy, convenient way to be able to recall, like I say, EQ settings, preamp settings, compressor settings, gate settings, anything like that. And basically what you do is any window that you're on the console. So if, for example, you're in the kick EQ section, so you'd have to be specifically in the EQ section of the kick channel. Is this? No, that button's not working. One of my buttons on my Stream Deck stopped working. Let's try this one up again. So here we go. This is the kick channel, and here I'm looking at my parametric EQ. And if I'm on this particular page on the console, and then I hit the library button, I can then recall into here an EQ for that kick, and it can either be one that's come in the factory or it can be one that I have created myself and stored into the console. Now, one slightly annoying thing, one thing I'd love to be able to do is to recall an entire channel strip. So if I've got a particular guitarist, let's say I've got Tom the guitarist, who's my worship leader, and like many churches would have, you'd have Tom will be on one week and Pete will be on next week and Sally on the week after. And I would love to be able to just say, hey, look, let's just recall Pete's channel. Boom, there's all his settings, pulled him up, and now he's good to go. Unfortunately, you can't do that. But what you can do is you can store a preamp for Pete. You can store a PEQ, parametric EQ for Pete. You can store a compressor for Pete. And then you can just recall those things individually. So you'd have to recall 3 separate things, or if you used gates or anything else as well, you'd have to recall all of those separately as well. But you could store and recall all of those bits and just pull them up individually for an individual on any given Sunday. If you wanted to work that way, that's fairly simple to do. It's just a little bit frustrating that you can't just recall the entire channel strip, but that is how the library works, and that's there for you. So it's quite a nice way to be able to store, recall, pull up settings, either ones that you've created or ones that come out of the factory. And I was going to go through the process of loading up a kick, snare, tom, all these preset EQs and things, but I didn't think through the fact that my microphone is here and my console is over there, and I can't really make the two meet in the middle. So we're just going to have to pretend that we've done that. And that's the easy bit. We're gonna dive into some much more complicated things in a minute anyway, so I don't need to worry too much about that. So coming back to my spreadsheet that I made before, this is where the spreadsheet starts to really get very, very useful for us, because one of the first jobs we need to do when we're building this spreadsheet is we need to work out how we're going to configure our buses. And this is one of the really key things for laying everything out on this spreadsheet, because when we make this change, it really has a massive impact on the whole console. It kind of like rebuilds the whole console for us. So this console has 12 bus on it. If I cut back to here, you'll be able to see the blue buttons down the right hand side there. Those blue buttons are numbered 1 to 12, and they are mix bus, and there are mix bus outputs. And we can decide how our mix bus are programmed. So we can decide whether we want to have, so by default, out of the factory, it comes with 8 auxes and 4 groups. And you can leave it as that. You can leave it with 8 and 4. But we can actually choose how we do that split. And in the software here, if I go to setup, and this is basically the same, the buttons on the software are basically the same as the buttons on the console, so you do the same thing on the console. Go into setup, mixer config and bus config. Here we can actually see how we're going to separate those 12 out. Now you can see actually at the minute this console is set up with 9 auxes and 3 groups. And if we take a look back on the spreadsheet that we had before, we can see we set it up that way because that's what we required in order to do the number of outputs that we needed to do on this this particular service. This was a Christmas service that I did back in Christmas, and I needed 9 aux outs. So I've got 7 in-ear monitor mixes. I had a mix that I'd labeled for comms, which we'll have a look at in a minute, and I needed to also do a live online mix as well. So that gave me 9 auxes and left to me with 3 groups. So I've got 3 groups, which is a drum group, a vocal group, and a drum effects group. And so I needed to configure it 9 and 3. So 9 and 3 is how it's been configured here in the software. And if we make a change to that, it will actually completely change all of my outputs. I'm not going to do it because one of my outputs, as I say, is feeding the audio to this live stream. And if I reconfigure that now, we're going to lose audio to the live stream. So I don't want to change anything to change those outputs. And it's a big deal if you do have to go about that. So it's really worth knowing exactly how many auxes do I need and exactly how many groups do I need in order to do the thing that you want to do, the service or whatever it is that you're doing. So once we've decided how we're going to split our mix bus, mix bus, by the way, is just a term that describes how we can send multiple channels somewhere. If you think about a bus, a bus that you jump on and drive somewhere and go to the shops in or whatever, a bus's job is to take multiple people to a location. And a mix bus is exactly the same. It's just going to take multiple channels of audio to something, whether that's an in-ear monitor or a live stream mix or whatever it might be. It's just going to take multiple channels and feed them somewhere. So once you've worked out how many bus you need for auxes and how many you need for groups, you can configure the mixer that way. But then how do we start to use those things? Well, one of the things I'm going to take you through a few things, and one of the things we're going to start with is we're going to look at on the spreadsheet, we've got group 3 as a drum effects group. And I'm going to show you how we build that up. So we can look at how we route audio to a group and then how we can use that group for a number of different things. So first of all, how do we route audio to a group? Okay, so we're going to go to the routing tab here. You can see at the minute I've selected Tom 2. It's useful to have selected one of the drums, but it doesn't really matter which one, and we'll see why in a minute. If we go to the routing here, at the top of the routing sections, DCAs and mute groups, which we'll come on to in a minute. But if we scroll down to the next section below that, this then gives us the ability to decide what are we going to send our Tom 2 mic in this instance to. And you can see it's enabled for main left and right, so it's enabled to go to our main left and right mix. It's enabled for all of these auxes, so some of these auxes are labeled, drum, stage, zoom, they're all labeled up, they're just labels from something else. And then aux is up to 9. Aux 9, don't know why that keeps flicking back. Aux 9, groups 1, 2, and 3. And we want to route this to group 3. So we're just going to turn that on, and Tom 2 is now going to group 3. Now I said it doesn't really matter which of the channels we've selected, because down here we can select a different one. We can now select kick, and we can do the same thing. Group 3. Snare, group 3, Tom, group 3, Tom 2 we've already done, hats, come on, group 3, overhead left, and overhead right. All of those now routed into group 3. Lovely. Okay, so we've got our audio going to group 3. Okay, but let's just think through that audio chain at the minute, because what's happening here is our individual channels are still going to the speakers. So kick is going to the speakers. If I turn that up, if we had kick going through there, it would come out to main left and right mix, which ordinarily would be going to your speakers, before it's even got as far as the group. Now, that may be okay, but it may not. Now, let's just, if we think specifically about this situation, so group 3, we're actually saying group 3 we're going to use as a drum effects group. So we want to use it to add some effects to some of our drums. And we're going to use it to do a drum reverb. Drum reverb's the main effect you'd probably want to apply to a drums. You're unlikely to want to put chorus on a drum kit or anything like that. So reverb's going to be the thing that we're going to go for. And in that instance, we would want the clean drum audio to be going to our speakers. We want clean drums to be going to the speakers. And the purpose of the group is to add some reverb to some of those drums in order to then send some reverb to the speakers as well. Now, the one of the things to think about here is that at the minute we've routed all of those drums to that group. Now, we probably don't want to put reverb on our kick. We probably don't want to put reverb on our overheads. We probably don't even want to put it on our hi-hats either. Actually, probably we only want it to go to snare and the 2 toms. So when we're routing our audio, it's worth just thinking, which channels do we actually want the effect to be applied to? So I don't want it on kick. I don't want it on hats. I don't want it on my overhead, so I'd actually not even bother turning those ones on. We could just use snare, tom 1 and tom 2, and we're going to apply our effects to that that set of drums. Now this here, if we did want all of our drum audio to go through the group before going to the main left and right, this is where we could turn it off from going directly to the main left and right. So on our kick, we could actually just disable main left and right. Kick won't, no matter what you do to the fader now, if we come back to here, our fader position doesn't matter. It's not going to be sending that audio to main left and right at all. We have no kick audio going directly to main left and right. Our kick audio is going to our group, and then our group is going to our main left and right. So we can route that audio via a group if we wanted to. As I say, in this instance, that's not what we want. We want to be able to send it directly. But there are some times where you might want to do it that way, that all the audio goes through the group before going to your main left and right. Okay, so we've routed some drums to our group 3. Okay, and we now want to apply an effect to that group. Why are we putting it on a group and not just using one of the effects bus? Well, on this console, we only have 4 effects bus. So if I go into our effects here, you've got effects 1, 2, 3, 4 send, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 return. The additional returns here, I think it depends as to whether you've got mono or stereo effects. I think that's what it's saying, unless because these are obviously all grayed out, so I'm not quite sure actually why there's 8 of them listed there. But you can see we've only got 4 effects sends. There are no more effects sends, so the actual effects bus send and return, we only have 4 of them available to use. And so I had again all my effects listed out on my spreadsheet. So effects 1, 2, and 3 are 3 vocal effects, 2 vocal reverbs, and a vocal delay. Effect 4 was an instrument delay, so I'd just have a generic instrument delay that we could apply to keyboard, maybe acoustic guitar, something like that. So that's my 4 effects bus gone. But I still wanted a drum reverb that I could control separately and a guitar chorus that I wanted to control separately. So I had 6 effects units being used, but only 4 bus in which to put them on. So we need to then think, okay, well, how else can we use our effects units? And what I'd decided to do was to apply an effect to an insert on a group and then send those drums to that group to then send that audio through the effects unit. So let's look at how we start doing that then. So we want to have a look at our effects units themselves. I don't know whether there's a way to do this on the software. Here we go. Okay, so we want to have a look at the back panel. I think effects 1. Let's scroll through 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it can only do this on the console. So on the console, let's just look at one of these others instead. Let's look at effects 1 because again, can't really get over there very easily. But on the console, what you can actually do is you can use the effects section to decide where you want to send a particular effect. And you can see here that it can be on the effects sends, which is fine, but we can change it to a group insert, and group 3 is the one we've just applied to our drums. So we can apply effects 3 to our group insert here. Oh, I tell you the other way we might be able to do it, actually. I can't quite see it. It's behind. I've got a speaker in the way on my shot here. But if I go to group 3 here and then go to the insert point here, here we go. So we can insert into group 3 here an effect unit. So we can take effects 5 here, effects 5, send and return on our insert point on our group, hit apply, and effects 5 is now being routed into the insert point on that group. Now, at this point, the thing you need to be aware of is that you can blend your effects in a couple of ways. So you can blend it by taking the level of that group up and down. So our master level of that group will change the amount of the effect that's going to that group. But you also need to remember that our clean audio is also going to that group. So if I turn the group up, it will turn up the clean drums that are also going through that group as well as the effect. So you will change your overall drum level as it goes through that group as you boost that level up and down. So one of the things that I would use to adjust probably more than the master level there would be the again, I'm going to see whether I can if I can access this anywhere. If I go to my effects, you should have a, is this going to give me, yeah, okay. Oh, level, yes, here we go. So the level of the effect that's being sent to the group you can adjust a blend here within that group. So this is a control that you might need to be aware of if you're going to be doing this, and you can actually use this here to blend your level of your effect on that group, and that will just then affect the group. Just then affect the reverb, not affect the overall drum level as well. So that's a useful control to know with inside the effects processor there. Okay, so we've routed some drums into a group. We've applied an effect to the insert point on that group. So now we can get some reverb on some of our drums. We could also do other processing on this as well. We could have let's try and find my way back around here again. I need to find my... So on that group, you've also got... I can't actually see that right hand side. I can see it there actually. So yeah, if you go to your group down here, into that channel, there we go. You can add an EQ to that group. We can add compression to that group. So the audio for that group is going through that group, and any audio that's going through that group can be processed in the same way that you'd process a channel. You've got pretty much exactly the same control on a group as you would have on your channel. So you've actually got two different EQs. You've got a graphic EQ, a parametric EQ, and a compressor all on that group that you can use and adjust as you wish. So you can totally do parallel compression for your drums or whatever you want to do. Anything like that is all completely achievable through a group. Hopefully that all makes sense. So that's our group audio. We'll leave it there for now. We might come back to a few things in a minute, but that's sending audio through the group and why we might choose to send audio through a group. Now, another thing that we had listed on the master spreadsheet was I did two channels of bass. I did a clean bass and a fuzz bass, which is another technique I quite like to use fairly often. And in order to achieve this, we're going to double patch a particular channel. So let's just go over here to our I/O patching. And what we want to do is we want to scroll down, not zoom out, scroll down to bass and bass P. So these are our two channels here. Now, obviously, I don't have the bass plugged in right now, but we're just going to pretend. Let's just select a channel. So our clean bass channel, let's say our clean bass is plugged into channel 10. Yes, it's plugged into channel 10. So we plug our bass into channel 10 and we get bass on our bass channel. Great, easy peasy. Now, what we want to do is we want to apply some different processing to that same bass feed. So where are we going to patch that bass feed? Well, we need to the bass is only plugged in the one socket. There is only one bass guitar. It's only got a single feed into a single DI box, and that single DI box is patched into channel 10. So it's always got to come from channel 10. That's the only place that bass is plugged in. So channel 10 here, we're also going to patch to our bass P just bass parallel, second channel of bass. So now these two separate channels are both looking at the same input. One input, two separate channels, and we can process those two channels differently. So if we head back to our processing and we can select our bass channel, and the first thing I'm going to do is go to our preamp. And one of the things that we have on the Allen and Heath consoles is we have the ability to be able to add a tube emulator preamp on our inputs. Now the first bass channel doesn't have this in, but if we take a look at the bass P, the parallel channel, we've got a tube stage preamp inserted onto this into the preamp section here, and we can enable this tube emulator, and we can basically you've got various different modes that this will run in. We can choose which mode we want to run in. The higher the mode, the more depth and warmth, and if you go up even higher, you get into a high drive kind of overdriven tone. And we can choose how how much kind of warmth, how much grittiness, how much depth we want to add to this sound. And basically the higher we turn this up, the more kind of distorted, overdriven, warmth kind of tone we create from that preamp, which can be really nice. And particularly in this instance, when you've got two channels, so again, I'd run the clean bass slightly higher. You can see the two level positions here. Clean bass slightly higher, the parallel overdriven bass slightly lower, maybe 10 dB, maybe even less than that. We have those two bass channels, and what that does is it just helps to thicken that bass sound up. We get a really nice big fat bass sound with just that kind of warmth from that tube preamp emulator on that second bass channel, just really thickening that sound up, giving it loads of body, loads of depth. So it can work really nicely for this kind of thing. The other place you can also use it is even on things like a kick drum, or I've put it on vocals in the past. There's loads of ways that you could use this, but you could do this same sort of process for a number of different things. And then we've got two channels of audio, both of them receiving the same input, but both of them sounding very different. I would also EQ them very differently. The second channel, the overdriven channel, we're really just wanting loads of warmth from that channel. So I'd probably either you could put a high cut low pass filter on, just cut out a load of the high frequencies out of it, just get loads of warmth from the low end out of it. That's one way that you could EQ that. Another way is just to put a cut like that in your higher frequencies of your bass. I mean, the bass isn't obviously going to have loads of very high frequencies, but you know, maybe 2, 3, 4K, that kind of area where you get that sort of presence, that tone sound can come through in there on a bass guitar. Maybe reduce some of that on this second channel. So this is just like muddy warmth, loads of depth to that second channel. Whereas the first channel, maybe we even want to boost some of that, and that kind of brings some of the high, bright tones out on the bass. And then you blend those two together to give you that super fat, super rich tone on that bass guitar. It can be a really nice way to do that. Okay, so we've double patched our bass guitar. We've got two channels of bass guitar coming in, but now our bass is getting quite loud. We've now got two sets of bass channels, both of them adding volume to the bass sound. Our bass is quite loud. So how do we turn that down? Well, you could take two fingers and try and pull two faders down, but it's never very easy to do that. And if you look at the spacings, I'm not going to go too much into it right now, but you've got logarithmic scales on audio. So the difference there, if I move that about 1 centimeter, I'm moving that by about 5 decibels. Whereas this channel, if I take that and move that by about 1 centimeter, we're moving that at least 10 dB, if not even 12 or 15 dB, with the same amount of movement. So trying to get two fingers and move that by the same amount when they're at different positions on the fader is almost impossible. So what are we going to do? Well, in this instance, we could route those through a group. We could send our bass to a group, and we could use a group to control all of our bass audio. That is an option. However, based on our spreadsheet, we've already run out of groups. We don't have any more mix bus available, so we can't use a group in this case. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to use what's called a DCA. So I'm going to head back to my routing page, and we saw here at the top of this section DCAs. We've got 8 DCAs available on this console, and on our spreadsheet here, our bass guitar was going through DCA 2. So DCA 2, I'm currently selected the clean bass sound, and I could assign that to DCA 2. Easy peasy. But underneath there, we've also got this view button, and if I click on the view button, this now shows us everything that we could possibly route to DCA 2. And I've got two channels that we want to route. So I want to route bass and bass P, and we can select both of those two. And now we've got two channels that are both being routed to DCA 2. Okay, so why would we do that? What's the benefit of a DCA? Well, a DCA, if I come back over here to DCAs, now I've now got it looks like a volume control. It's not actually a volume control for that channel. What this actually is doing is this is effectively a remote control. So DCAs don't process audio. Groups process audio. We can put an EQ on there. We can compress that audio. We can do all kinds of things with that. A DCA, the only thing that you can do to a DCA is send or control audio with it. It's a remote control for those channels. So we can't do any further processing here. We don't have a parametric EQ. We don't have a compressor. We don't have inserts. We can't add anything to this audio at this point. All we're doing is remotely controlling the volume of those two channels that are associated to this DCA. So the benefits of a DCA is it's a really simple way to be able to control multiple channels of audio. So if you've got two bass channels and we want to just have one controller to control both of them, DCA is a great solution for that. It can also give you a mute. You can hit mute on that, and if we now go back to our inputs, you can see these two they're flashing. The flashing mute indicates that this is muted, but it's not muted on the channel. If it was muted on the channel, it would just be a solid red mute. This is muted, but it's not muted on the channel. It's muted somewhere else. So that could be muted via a group. It could be muted via a DCA. It's just muted at some other point in the chain. So we can mute channels. We can change the overall level of that channel. We've actually got a PAFL here as well, so we could listen to the audio that's being associated to that DCA as well. We can do all of those things, but that is all we can do with it. So it's the benefit of a DCA is it's really simple. You're not adding any additional processing to that audio. It's just the audio that's on those channels. And it gives you the ability to be able to remotely control multiple channels of audio all at the same time. So DCAs have their place, they have their uses. They're just a bit more limited than a group is. But the effect is kind of very much the same in many ways. Okay, so two channels, both routed from the same input, both processed slightly differently, both routed through to a DCA, and we can now control them remotely from a single fader and a single mute button for those two channels. Great. If you're still with me, chuck something in the comments below. I'd love to see a thumbs up or a question or whatever you've got. That'd be great. So, what else did we have on this spreadsheet? Okay. So, another thing that we had here, there it is, comms. So one of the things we had set up was the ability to be able to send things to comms. So we were actually using a comm system that sent audio through the desk. So if you picture a set of headphones with the microphone, comms headset type microphone, that microphone audio was going into the desk as a microphone channel, and then being able to, we could process it, but we could route it to an output, and we had a single output available for our comms. So all of our comms, they were just sharing a single output. So we had two camera operators and a vision mixer. So 3 camera ops all sort of on the same comms channel, and they could talk to each other through this system. So how did we route that? Well, the other mix bus that we spoke about earlier on is of course an aux, and let's just for now assume we've got aux 1. Hopefully most of you are fairly familiar with routing audio to an aux. We're just going to select the aux that we want to send it, and now these volume levels here become the volume that we're sending to that aux. So I can push that up in aux 1, and if I come back out of aux 1, you'll see that our levels drop back down. There's nothing being sent to left and right, but to aux 1, that level is being sent out. So aux 1 is now receiving the comms audio. However, what we were actually doing wasn't sending aux 1 to our comms. We were sending them matrix audio. We're actually sending them matrix 2. And if I go here to my mix, you can see aux 8 there is the audio that I'm sending to this live stream. So there's our audio for the live stream. It's PAFL'd because I'm currently monitoring that on my headphones, so I can check that I'm definitely sending audio to the live stream. But here, matrix 2, we can send audio to our matrix, and that matrix can then send the audio to our comms. So how do we do that then? Well, if we go into the routing tab on our matrix, you can see here matrix 2, click into this, what we have on a matrix is the ability to be able to send mix bus to a matrix. So a matrix is it's a way of grouping mix bus. So where our groups and our DCAs were a way of kind of controlling groups of individual channels, a matrix is a way of being able to control mix bus. So in our matrix, we can now choose how much of any of our aux as well as our groups, and even our main left and right mix are being sent to our matrix. So in this instance, for the comms system, we sent it to aux1. Aux1 here is labeled as drums. So we definitely want to make sure we're sending 0 dB of aux1 because that's our comms audio, so they can hear each other talking to each other. But they probably also want to be able to hear what's actually going to the speakers as well, so they can hear a little bit of the audio in their ears. And so you can actually route left and right into that matrix, and now they can hear both sets. But maybe we'd say let's drop it down by 10 dB. They can have 10 dB less of the overall audio, so that their comms channel is louder than the background, you know, what's actually going on in the event. So they can hear the event, they know where they are, they can, you know, they can keep track of how far through the meeting we are and what's happened, and you know, have we finished worship yet, or whatever it is. But their comms level to talk to each other is actually louder than the rest of the event, the program audio. And we can send both of those two sets of things to them, and they can actually have a balance of any of these things. They could have our group 2 that we set up for our drum effects. Yeah, if we wanted to send them some drum effects, we could do that. That's there, that's available. We could send that. Unlikely to want to do that, but you could send any of these mix bus could be sent to a matrix, and it can be a really good way to be able to control what audio we're sending to which of our matrices. So there are a few, let's cut back to this camera. There are a few more advanced processing setting up, I don't know what the word is, ways to set up the SQ5 console. I hope that's been helpful. Hopefully that's been useful for you. If you want to know more about setting up the SQ5, I've actually done multiple videos on the SQ5, and you can have a look back through my channel. You'll see I did an hour-long session on kind of how to get started on the SQ5, all the things you need to know about bringing audio in, EQing, compressing, all that kind of stuff. I've done standalone videos on setting gain, setting EQ, setting compression. There are multiple videos available on my channel all looking at the SQ5. So go back, have a look through all of those, and you should hopefully be able to find everything you need to know about the SQ5. And then today we've covered some more of the advanced stuff, more advanced routing, groups, matrices, DCAs, all that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, there is a good chunk of stuff on the SQ5. Okay, where are we up to? Wonderful. It is now time for the Wheel of Knowledge. I need a jingle or something for that. Let's clear some space and bring it over. So if you were with me last time, you will have seen this, the Wheel of Knowledge. It got named, I can't actually remember who named it last time, but somebody in the comments suggested the name for this, the Wheel of Knowledge. I thought it was a great name, so that's the one we're going with. The Wheel of Knowledge, one thing I'm doing in my live shows is to teach you something that I have no idea what it's going to be. On here, I've listed, we've got 12 segments on here. I've actually cheated slightly and taken 6 possible subjects, and I'm going to give this wheel a spin, and whatever it lands on is the thing that I'm going to teach you about. So I've got 6 subjects prepared to talk on, and we're going to give this a spin, and we're going to see which of the 6 subjects I'm going to teach you about today. Where's it going to land? What are we going to be doing? Here we go. Oh, vision mixing. Okay. So, vision mixing. And now I have prepared some slides for this one. I just need to find them. Not that. Vision mixing. Here we go. Too many buttons, too many buttons, too many buttons. Vision mixing. 3 top tips. So, how are we doing time-wise? I suspect, oh man, I'm well over time. This is a super long live stream today. Okay, vision mixing. Top 3 tips. We're going to whistle through this super quick. So I've got a few things that I go through. Oh, I've just had a question come in. Let's just deal with this quickly. Does DCA make the gain louder for... I've got a little icon over there. I can't read it. For something... Sorry, I can't read your question. If you can chuck it in again, I think it will go out of the way of the icon that's on the screen. There's a... I can like your comment, but I just can't read it. So, does DCA make the gain louder for something? Sorry, I can't read the end of that. Chuck it in again, and I'll come back to it in a bit. Okay, 3 top tips. What are we going to look at on vision mixing? So, number 1, ask why. Always ask why are we going to use a particular shot. So, whenever we're choosing which of our shots we want to use, it needs to be something that is going to tell a story. And this is a concept that I think for a lot of people it seems like very abstract, and it seems like it's what does tell a story mean, particularly in the context of a church service or something like that. It's really hard to understand what that would be, but it's something that I really found the most helpful thing to understand when it comes to video work is to understand storytelling in that video and understand what is the story and what are we trying to tell here. And really the story is about kind of just highlighting what the main things that are going on at this particular moment. So we can have a few different shots. So I've got here a few scenes that I've taken from some videos that I've made. So the story might be, this could be like a responsive moment in a meeting where there's, maybe either some audience participation, maybe this is like a talk and there's some audience laughter going on, something like that. Or it could be just a quiet, soft moment where we're just sort of reflective and a bit more meditative. And so you kind of open up to see something of what the room is going, what's happening in the room, what are the kind of congregation doing, what are the people doing, and being able to get a sense of what's happening in the room. Similarly, we could have a shot that's of the keyboard, and it could be that there's maybe there's no words being sung at the minute and there's perhaps just some melody being played on the keyboard. And so the story is going to be about what's happening, what's going on. We can see the keyboards being played. One of the most distracting things in video is being able to hear something but not be able to see it. The whole kind of curiosity killed the cat concept, where our brain just runs away with it because I can hear this noise, but I just can't see where it's coming from. And so being able to see what's being played, being able to see what's happening at any given moment in time, this is all about what is the story of this particular moment in this meeting. Or it could be that we've come to a big part in the song, maybe there's a really key line, maybe we've just come into a chorus, something like that. We're going to just cut to the singer and see this key line being delivered by our lead vocalist at this moment in time. And so being able to again just see where this story is, what's being played out in front of us. And again, these terms might be quite difficult because of course a service isn't just about, you don't just go to a service just to sit and watch what happens on the stage. We go to participate, and everybody's together in a congregation, and so it's about kind of all of us together in that room. And so the idea of a story playing out on a stage in front of us is not always the most helpful, but from a vision mixing perspective, it's a really helpful mindset to have to enable you to choose the right shots that are going to emphasize the things that are happening at that moment. So ask yourself, why am I displaying this shot? What is it contributing? What is it adding to people's experience as they watch this? Maybe it's a live stream, or maybe it's iMag in church, or whatever it might be. But what is it what am I trying to show with this shot right now? Why am I using this shot? What's the benefit? What does it bring? What does it emphasize? Ask yourself why. Okay, next, landing on a shot. So sometimes you might want to land in a particular place. So for example, well, again, I've got some more shots here. So we might have these couple of shots. So we've got shot 1 and shot 2. Both of the same event, both happening at the same time. So this is the wide room shot, and this is the close-up on the stage. And what we might want to do here is, so we've got a conversation happening, and so maybe our host is asking a question, and the host is saying, you know, what did you have for breakfast this morning? And we're going to land on the shot just as the person answering the question delivers their line. We're going to land on that shot just as they're there. And so if we're going to think about, okay, so he's just asked her a question, we're about to come to this answer now. We want to get ourselves to a different shot, because we want to really have that impact as we land on our shot. So as they're giving the answer, we're going to cut to something else. So what was it you had for breakfast this morning? Bang, we can land on the shot. I had cornflakes. And there it is. There's the line. That's the moment that we've been waiting for. You can build that anticipation. We can help to just make that stand out something. Now, obviously, the example I've just given there is a bit of a flippant one, perhaps. But it might be that there's a situation where there's a really key part of a sermon, or it works as well in worship, where there's maybe a real kind of key line of a song. If the song is, trying to think of an example. The title line of the song, normally most songs, the title line of the song is like the key moment in that song. And so if there's a song which we're singing, and when we come to the title line of that, we're going to land in that point where it's just sort of, this is what this song is all about. We might want to time it that we land on our shot. If we come back to this one, we land on our shot of our lead vocalist just as they deliver that line, that key line for that song. What is this song all about? Here it is. This is Amazing Grace, or whatever it is, whatever the song is. So we're going to land on those moments. Other things that we might want to land on would be drum fill, drum solo. If there's a section in a song where we cut to a drum, there's no singing going on, we've just got a drum fill for a bar or two as they move into the next part of the song. We could land on that and see the drummer as he's playing that part, or a guitar solo. Similarly, if there's a section in the song, an instrumental section where we cut to a guitar solo, then maybe we land on those moments just as the guitarist starts his solo. We're going to cut to this shot of the guitarist to just really help emphasize that moment. And a lot of that requires, one of the things that I really encourage tech people to do is to go to a band rehearsal, because you really need to know those songs to know where those moments are going to fall. Where is the guitar solo going to come in? And if you're not at the rehearsal, you're not going to know those moments, and you're not going to be able to cut to the cameras at the right point. And it's really important that we know those songs as well as the musicians do, so that we can make sure we're cutting to the right cameras at the right time. We've got all the right things in place, and we can land as we need to. And then finally, my third top tip for vision mixing is pacing. Pacing is something I've probably not been very good at today, because I'm as I say, I'm very conscious of time because I've gone way over what I was planning on doing. But hey, let's keep going. Pacing is all about the speed at which we cut between our shots. Oh, I don't have any examples here. Okay, so pacing. So if you're in an upbeat moment of a song, you might cut quite quickly from one shot to another. Let's cut away from this one. So if we want to really increase energy in a shot, we might, let's see if I can do it with this. We can cut between our cameras, and we can make this move quite quickly from one shot to another. And that's pacing can help kind of create a sense of energy and create a sense of movement in the, let's assume it's a live stream. In the live stream, we're going to create a real sense of energy in that live stream. And so we can cut from one camera to another, trying to make sure we're thinking about, why am I cutting to this camera? Why, what's so important about this shot right now? Sometimes we just have to cut to a shot just because we need to cut away from something. It might be that we want to land on something. We're going to land on the guitar solo in a second. So we're going to cut away from the guitar, deliberately choose a different shot to cut onto. And our why at that moment might just be because I want to cut back to the guitar in a second. So just thinking through, why am I cutting to this? What am I going to go to next? And then try to make sure the pace is matching the energy in the room. So if we're getting to a high energy moment, we might cut the camera a bit more frequently, and that just helps to build that energy and build that momentum. And then as we get to a calmer, softer moment, we're just going to hang on some long shots, and we can cut to some much longer shots and not be so cutty with those. And this applies as well to preaching. It doesn't have to be music where we do this. If the sermon's getting to a point where the preacher's getting very energetic, there's lots of emotion in what he's saying, there's lots of passion coming out, you might choose at that moment to cut to a few more different shots just to help build that energy, to build that momentum. We can cut wide, we can cut close, we can cut to a side shot, we can cut, and we need to be sensitive with that. We don't want to just keep cutting, but a bit more movement in those times where there's a sense of passion, a sense of it building, a sense of something is about to happen. We can cut a bit more frequently in those moments. And then when it drops to a softer point, the pace has dropped, we can match that pacing with our cutting as well, and being able to pick some more some longer shots, hold on some shots for a longer period of time just to reflect that pacing. So that's vision mixing, pacing. Why are we going to cut to a certain shot? How do we land on a certain shot and make sure we're pacing and matching those pacing, the energy of the room as we're cutting our shots. Again, hopefully that's been really helpful for you. If it has, why not? Let's hit that button, like, subscribe, all those things. Again, they're really useful. If you can do that, that would be great. Thank you so much. Great, I've got this question that's come back in. I can see it now. Does DCA make the gain louder for all outputs? Okay, yeah, great question. So I think, I'm just trying to understand what your question is. I think what you're saying is, will a DCA affect things like AUXs? Like, so if you change the DCA level, will it change people's in-ear monitor mixes, for example? The answer to that is no. So a DCA is only going to affect your main left and right feed. It won't change anything into the things like AUX, sends, monitor feeds, that sort of stuff. So I use DCAs particularly during sound check in a service on a Sunday morning. When I'm doing sound check, I will do I do individual channel sound check. We go through everything, but then as the band start playing, I'll take sections out. So the way I quite often set up my DCAs is I'll have a DCA that's my whole band. And if I want to just listen to my vocals during sound check, I'll take the entire band DCA down, just pull the fader down to 0. So all I can hear is the vocals. Now the vocals don't even know that that's happened. They've all got their in-ears on. And on stage, everybody's still hearing the full band. They can still hear keys and guitar and whatever else. They just carry on singing, don't know that anything's changed. But for me in front of house, I can kill all the musicians, just listen to the vocals and say, how are the vocals sitting together? Do they sound right? Do they sound like they're blending well? Are they EQ'd so that they all sit together quite nicely? And I can make tweaks to the whole vocal group as a whole. Or I could take out all my vocals and guitars and keyboards and just leave my drums and just do the same thing. How are the drums sounding? Do the drums fit together okay? Are the drums sounding good? Is it got a good drum mix going on? And then I can just keep tweaking individual parts of the band to see how they're sounding by adjusting my DCA levels during a sound check. So I think that hopefully you've come back with something else. As a volunteer, you're sharing your thoughts on how and why to use the technical features So very much appreciated. You're very welcome. Glad it's helpful for you. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Hopefully that makes sense. I am going to wrap this live stream up in a second. So if there is anybody else out there who's got a question, please do chuck it in the comments. I would love to answer your questions for you, but you do have about 20 seconds in which to ask them. So fire away if you have anything else, and if not, we're going to wrap things up. Yeah, hopefully that has been a helpful live stream. We've covered quite a lot of different stuff. I've just realised I need to pull my ending video up, so I'm going to do that quickly while I wait for any last questions to come in, and then we are going to wrap this up. I'm going to head out of here. I'm going to go and get myself a drink of water or something because I'm a bit dry. Okay. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. So once more, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe, please hit the bell icon, and please leave it a thumbs up. It really does help the channel, and I'm very appreciative of anybody who does those things. So if you haven't done yet, please do go and do all those things. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, guys.